Hey, I want to talk to you about surveillance states. But before we dive into the topic, I want you to watch this ad that was played during this American Super Bowl.
Pets are family, but every year, 10 million go missing. And the way we look for them hasn't changed in years. Until now. One post of a dog's photo in the Ring app starts outdoor cameras looking for a match. Search Party from Ring uses AI to help families find lost dogs. Since launch, more than a dog a day has been reunited with their family. Be a hero in your neighborhood with Search Party. Available to everyone for free right now. Join the neighborhood at ring.com.
Did you find that heartwarming? Or did you find that creepy? If you found it creepy, you're not alone. In fact, there was enough of a backlash that the agreement got cancelled between Flock and Amazon, at least for this particular application. Now, will they partner up in the future? Maybe, but I'm sure they won't make a cute little ad about it. But it makes you wonder, how do these devices talk to each other? And the groundwork for that has been laid out much more in advance than just this year. All the way back in 2021, Amazon rolled out a feature for its Alexa and Echo devices that shared your internet connection with neighbors via a service called Sidewalk. It creates a low bandwidth network between nearby devices to include Echo smart speakers, displays, and Ring cameras. The goal is to provide a reliable signal to neighboring devices like tile trackers, which share their location. Sidewalk keeps devices online when their home network is out of range. This shared service remains online and operational unless you opt out. The reality is that today, most people just use their apps as plug and play. They do not configure them. Even if there's an option to opt out of such collection practices, they don't opt out. And companies make sure that it is spread out into 1,000 different settings, like the notification settings for LinkedIn. You really just find it a hassle, and you may end up wondering, do I really care enough? And that's from someone of a generation that really likes to dive into the nitty-gritties of technology. Majority of the people don't. They just use their apps as they're installed and they run with it. They just give all the permissions and they don't care about anything else. As always, protecting the children, protecting these cute little pets. This is what is put at the forefront for you to allow access. Now that you already have the hardware, why not find a few pets? But are you keeping track when it expands past a pet? Are you really monitoring what happens with the data when it's capturing things that are not pets? Do you have any control over it? So if you just give the keys of your house to everyone out there and just trust that no one will do anything to you, even in the future, would you say that's wise? Any adult who's not living in a fantasy world will tell you, no, that utopia does not exist and never will. Such is the human nature, such is human society. More and more of our homes are left unprotected. More of our lives are getting exposed. And we have to put in the trust that we are going to be respected. We will never be violated. And that is the mercy with which you get to live with when you have no privacy, no freedom. And this is the idea behind 1984 by George Orwell. It's to show an extreme version, a totalitarian surveillance state that controls its people because it can. It has access to every single thing, even their thoughts and actions in their lives. It can mold people into what the state wants. Those people are left as puppets, shells of themselves. The government does not want you to have a particular opinion. It makes sure that you either lose that opinion or society gets rid of you because it can. And that is the warning in that book. Do not let anyone, any entity, any government have the ability to strip you of your privacy and freedom. Because if they can, it's only a matter of mercy that they don't. Let me give you a modern day example.
A 50-year-old grandmother spent 6 months in the slammer doing hard time because AI tools flagged her as a suspect in a bank fraud case. But it turns out the only fraud here was Jarvis going rogue and for some reason targeting Angela Lips. She spent 6 months behind bars for this. Then it only gets worse from there, because she sat in jail for 108 agonizing days before North Dakota officers collected her, and her attorney, Jay Greenwood, immediately requested her bank records, and Fargo police finally met with Greenwood and Angela on December 19th, 5 months after her arrest, and records showed that she was buying cigarettes and depositing Social Security checks in Tennessee at the time police placed her in Fargo. So she literally could not be the suspect guilty of bank fraud in North Dakota. The case was eventually dismissed on Christmas Eve, but the damage had already been done. She had no money, no coat, no way home, and subsequently lost her house, her car, and her dog. Lips says that the police didn't even offer to pay for her trip home. This is after she was found to be innocent of these crimes in which she spent fucking 108 days in jail for. They didn't offer to pay for her trip home, and with no money to her name, she was stranded in Fargo. Again, this is 1,200 miles away from where she actually lives. Sympathetic local defense attorneys pooled together money to pay for a hotel room, and a local nonprofit called the F5 Project arranged her trip back to Tennessee. I had my summer clothes on, no coat, it was so cold outside, snow on the ground, scared, I wanted out, but I didn't know what I was going to do, how I was going to get home. She says that she lost her home, her car, and her dog as a result of her stint in jail, and no one from Fargo Police Department has apologized for the disastrous mix-up, she said.
I talk about the US because it's a marker, right? The US has been very vocal, right, about showcasing freedom and protecting the rights of its people. But even they are now rolling over into a surveillance state, one that does not like dissent, one where journalists are not free to report what they want or even investigate how or what they want. Criminals can just grow free if they pay the price to the president. It's the corruption that it was supposed to stand out against. And that same corrupt system is now getting deeper and deeper into the minds of the people, into their lives. It's only a matter of time that same control, that same access gets abused. Now think about it this way. The partnership between Amazon and Flock happened this year, right? It got pulled off, it'll take another form and shape, and then it'll come into play. But the hardware for it was put into place in 2021. That means someone designed it and manufactured it maybe right at the start of that product line. So the vision is more than 5-6 years old. Today, AI is just another tool to extend the reach of it. Allow me to demonstrate what is happening today so we can see a bit more into what the future would look like.
Palantir is a US data analytics giant founded by elusive tech billionaire Peter Thiel, and it just reached a market cap of roughly $491 billion US. That makes it one of the hottest names in tech, but Palantir is controversial. It's under fire for its work with the Israeli Ministry of Defense and ICE, the US immigration agency. So what's behind the meteoric rise of this AI powerhouse? Let's break it down. First, where does Palantir come from? It started with spies. Palantir's story begins in 2003. Backed by the CIA's venture arm, it built tools for counterterrorism and intelligence agencies. A bit later, the FBI and NSA started working with Palantir too. It's named after the Palantir Seeing Stones in The Lord of the Rings.
Palantir is a big player, but it is an arm of the CIA, an espionage tool that is now being directed towards its own citizens, put into weaponry, and working with the cabal that exists between the Americans and the Izzies. Already for decades, we've had all our calls tracked and listened to. We've had the Izzies have backdoor access into every OS on the planet. In fact, companies like Meta, they already sell your data on the open market. Your WhatsApp communication might be encrypted, but everything else around it is not. Selling that data makes them as big as they are. But just think about the entire cache of data they have on you. See, in the past, we used to hate on China for being a surveillance state and really just getting into the lives of its people. But in reality, the West and the rest of the world was just trying to catch up. And now they are in a much, much more aggressive way. Which, if you need to get a refresher on how much they influence the life of their everyday citizen, take a look at this. This is an article from 2022 around the Me Too movement. And you know what happened? The government didn't want people to create hashtags to freely discuss hashtag Me Too. So, they've been censoring words and trying to scrub commentary from feminists that were talking about the abuse from high-profile figures in the society, including the government. Women were silenced so they could not publicly discuss their sexual abuse. Are these women wrong? Do they have nothing to hide? Apparently they do. An opinion you have today can change tomorrow, and that opinion can stay as it is, but its perception to those in power might change. And then that might need some changing. People got locked out of their Weibo accounts. That's like saying an Indian getting locked out of their WhatsApp account. It is crippling, and it's very hard to find people in your society to communicate with on any other platform. Now, I've taken the name of India, so let's talk about India, right? US is really out there, as I said, trying to be a hallmark of individualism. But let's talk about India, a country that has, since a long time, had a national security problem. So that has been a pretext for a lot of, I would say, government overreach and monitoring and surveillance. It's already existed in a lot of ways, mostly to keep the country safe. Now, when that is an excuse and when it's a legitimate reason, that is something an Indian needs protection from. But it's not really been there because you just have to name a recent tragedy and get anything passed. It's been very favorable for people who do want some of that overreach. Now, India has a centralized ID system called Aadhaar, right? It's like the social security number in America, but it's less guarded. But equally important, you can know everything about a person, where they've taken a hotel, how much taxes they paid, where they spend their money. Everything is linked to that Aadhaar. And if you get that information for any Indian, you can abuse it thoroughly. So you'd expect that the government will protect it, right?
कुछ 13 करोड़ लोगों के डेटाबेस वल्नरेबल हैं जो लीक हो सकते हैं और पब्लिक डोमेन में सामने आ गए हैं, ऐसी खबर छपी थी। इसमें क्या सच्चाई?
देखिए, ये जो 13 करोड़ डेटा की लीक है, पहले तो उसका आधार के UIDI से कोई संबंध नहीं है।
So the minister there says that no, there's a report that 130 million IDs have been leaked, and that's unfounded. It's not from our side, and you know, that's a fair concern to have, of course, right? You give all your data to the government. Everything that's private to you is with the government. You expect them to at least not let it leak out into the ether where it can be used by anybody with any intent, right? The government says no. The minister's like, no. These things cannot happen, do not happen. But 2024... a massive Aadhaar data breach exposes personal information of 81 crore Indians on the dark web. That's 810 million people. In a significant cybersecurity incident, a report from a US-based cybersecurity firm, Resecurity, reveals a massive data breach exposing the personal information of approximately 81.5 crore Indians on the dark web. The compromised data includes names, phone numbers, addresses, Aadhaar, and passport information, all reportedly available for sale. Who's responsible for this? So the government does get to take your data, does get to monitor you. And then what happens with that data? The Izzies are also very close with the current government. And it's not a one-off either, right? The government does get repeatedly hacked. India is not a leader in cybersecurity, so they collect all this data, and then what? Just flood it out? At least allow the user to sell it themselves in that case. So here's a news article from 2024 where the PMO office, the Prime Minister's office, and other key offices of the Indian government were hacked, and their data was leaked onto the internet. What did they include? Documents, images, and chat messages. So that's just the government getting compromised. But what about the government itself? With all that data it has on its people, including into their devices, What is the government doing with that? To its own people. 2023, December, we get this article where we find that the government has been working with Izzy Intelligence and putting spyware into their own journalists. That includes opposition leaders who were questioning the government for covering up scandals and corruption. As I said before, a country like India can just use national security as a reason to push past most of the accountability and protections for its people. See, the reality is that surveilling the masses, having access to the privacy of people, it is beneficial to those in power. Like, take a fair example, right? There's a terrorist. Someone wants to go into your country and cause a lot of harm. What if you can find out their plans, their intents, before they do anything? Right? It is so much more beneficial, so much less harm. That's a national security concern. But once you open up operating systems for the government to just walk in and walk out whenever they want, the human element in that government, in any institution of power, is still there. Just because it's the government or someone with power does not make them any less evil or any less corrupt than the common man. So no government or entity will ever give up the opportunity to not invade privacy, to not surveil the people as deeply and as minutely as it can. Of course, sometimes there's a technological limitation, but as we progress and technology becomes even more ingrained and AI is there in the background working as a black box, not really under your control, it's going to become more and more prevalent. And that's why surveillance states are going to be the new norm. Situations like this make you wonder, are we safe or are we being allowed to be safe?